I would like to say good morning and good afternoon and good evening to everyone across the world. We have people from some over 30 countries participating right now through the YouTube and the webinar. My name is Jafari. Do you have my voice?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Jafari, professor of University of Wisconsin Stout. And what you see, I think, in the background maybe is my university, which is most university, all the universities, like any destination, are empty, no students, and at destinations, no tourists. So universities and destinations have a lot in common. We are together here for the purpose, one purpose, to talk about tourism, and that brings us together. But what really brings us together is the COVID-19. Kasim, I just want to make sure that I'm connected. Am I?
Yes, you're connected and we are hearing you.
Okay, excellent, because I don't see other people. Okay, I move on. In the past, of course, there have been meetings and a lot of meetings in the past, but they have been all in person. This is very different now. In the past, and the past is not many years ago, as of last year, as of a few months ago, we were meeting in person. We were talking about market expansion, development. We were talking about growth by leaps and bounds. We were talking about Chinese tourists are coming, 130 million of them are coming. Where is my share? How can I attract them? We were talking about all the opportunities and prospects. And we became so successful that we had the problem of our own success. And we had a name for that, which is called over-tourism. As you can recall, last year and even this year, we had many articles on over-tourism, journal articles, many books on over-tourism. Last year, for example, I went to Venice, the Mecca of over-tourism, if you wish, about dealing with the subject of over-tourism. But over-tourism has changed now to no tourism. And this is all due to the coronavirus. What we are realizing, or what we are experiencing today, is that tourism is in a very long sleep, in hibernation. And the problem is we don't know about the wake-up time of the tourism industry. In the midst of all these problems, there was a benefit. You know, whenever you scratch problems, you can find benefits. And one of the benefits is that the muscle of tourism became very apparent to all the countries of the world. Suddenly, everybody realized that tourism is a giant industry. And it is a huge part of gross national product of many, many countries. For example, as late as 2-3 weeks ago, CNN was interviewing Sebastian Kurz, Chancellor of Austria, and he very clearly said that we are opening our doors of hospitality to tourism. We cannot be, we just cannot keep the doors locked. He talked about his #1 person of the country, talked about importance of tourism. And then as late as only 3 days ago, Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, told us very clearly, coronavirus has checked out and tourism is going to check in. These are my words, not her words. But hope is in the air. And it seems that everybody is thinking that, or getting ready for tourism to come. To the extent that even Secretary General of the United Nations had a message, which I don't know, Kasim, if you have the message, can you show it, the video?
Yes, I think I'm going to do it.
So 1 minute, 1 minute, 17 seconds.
Meanwhile, you can continue, Jafar.
Yes, it's a message from Secretary
While
General.
it's going to-
In other words, I said the governments are talking about tourism, and now this is the head of all governments, Secretary General of the United Nations, who spoke very positively about tourism and about the importance of tourism. And the message of UNWTO, which is the only intergovernmental agency in tourism and under the umbrella of the United Nations, that message of UNWTO is already ingrained in the message of Secretary General that I hope Dr. Fadari can show in a second. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, but it's going to be uploaded. So if you can continue.
Okay, very good. Sorry about this webinar organization. It's not easy to deal with people in different countries, and as you will see in a few minutes, we are all scattered. His message is very powerful, and definitely it has all the hopes of grain in it. Many webinars have been organized already, mostly beginning February, then in March, May. In May, we are loaded with webinars. But the thing is, most of the webinars that I have seen and you have seen are dealing with the formal tourism sector. And this means they talk about big airlines, big traffic internationally, big chain hotels, big businesses. And somehow the informal sector of tourism is totally ignored. And this is causing a lot of problem. We are not really talking about the small communities. Most webinars do not do that. We are not talking about micro entrepreneurs involved in tourism. We are not talking about underprivileged tourism places, and they're all gone. Or they are not in our radar is not picking them up. So we decided that we need to have a conference, a webinar, which is dealing with the informal sector, not the formal. No, the little operators out there in the rural community that nobody's thinking about it. So this webinar is all about that. We are focusing on the small, rural, and out of the way destinations. There are forgotten places and so on and so forth. Our presentation, similar to the sector, is going to be down to earth. We are going to talk about realities in different countries. What I'm going to do is, we have a panel of distinguished persons that I'm going to introduce one by one to you. The first segment of the panel is I'm asking the panelists to tell us what has happened in 5 minutes. Tell us what happened has been happening in their specific communities that they are talking about. What are some of the pains that the community, small operators are going through? We would like to hear their stories. We want to get to know about their struggles. Do they sense a hope? What are going to happen? So what I'm going to do, we are going to move from the Far East and come to the move on. We begin first with Japan, presentation from Japan. Then we move to presentation of tourism in small communities in Laos. From there, we go to Thailand. And after we learn about Thai situation in the small communities, we move to Malaysia. From Malaysia, we jump to the next continent, to Portugal, to have a sample of European community. You know, the small communities we are talking about are everywhere. in every country, in all the 195 countries of the United Nations, you find small operators, which are often ignored. And then from Portugal, we come to the United States. So that would be our first segment of the presentation, and then we have a second segment. So for the first segment, Dr. Fadari, I think we did not get the video, did we?
Actually, Jafar John, we have a very high traffic, so I have a bit of technical problem to uploading the
Okay.
file. But as soon as I get it, I'll
Don't worry, you are next. This is my first speaker, my first panelist is Dr. Kasim, Professor Kasim Fadari. He's Associate Professor and Head of Tourism and Hospitality Division of Graduate School of Asia Pacific Studies. A fantastic university. I was there last year, and I enjoyed the relationship that Professor Kasim has with his students. And to my surprise, he teaches in Japanese, which is wonderful. I wish I knew a few words in Japanese. I do a few words. His areas of specializations are sustainable tourism, rural development, agriculture, heritage tourism, and he's pretty active internationally, including he's a member of UNWTO Advisory Board, Quest certificate for the destination management organizations, and he's advisor in agriculture, heritage, and revitalization. So you see the background that he has is really perfect for the coverage that we have for this webinar. So Dr. Fadari, 5 minutes. Please tell us about your case.
Thank you, Professor Jafari. And I would like to thank everybody for their participation in the webinar. For these 5 minutes, I have prepared some examples and case studies for Japan. So I would like to go directly to share my PowerPoint screens, and I hope it works. I'm going to start with a Japanese rural tourist site in Ishikawa Prefecture. I think you can see the slide that I have already shared. Am I right?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes. So you see Tokyo is here. And if this is the Pacific Ocean, the other side is a very small peninsula, which is called Noto Peninsula. And the prefecture is Ishikawa Prefecture. Center of the prefecture is Kanazawa City. In the map, you can see it here. So the other side is Tokyo. The same size of Tokyo is the land of this Noto Peninsula, which you cannot compare the population of Tokyo with this place, but with the same size. In the middle of the peninsula, we have a very small village which is called Shunran no Sato. Sato in Japanese means community. Shunran is the name of the village. I started working with people here about 10 years ago, 2009. And in about 7 to, let's say, maximum 10 years, the number of tourists or visitors increased from 500 to more than 20,000 people. So what happened here, they have developed a very successful model of rural tourism, 6 to 7 guest houses initially existed, and now there are more than 40 guest houses, and all are mainly the forests who have been living there. So you can imagine in this last 8 to 10 years what happened when the number of visitors from 500 become 20,000. So many people started to replace their livelihood, which is originally agriculture, to tourism. And tourism became a very significant part of their livelihood. So it was good, and it was a successful model that I tried to introduce to other places. The place that I am now, if you look at the map of Japan, our university is here. This is Oita Prefecture in Kyushu Island in south of Japan. And here we have a small peninsula, which is Kunisaki Peninsula. So from Noto Peninsula to Kunisaki Peninsula, I tried to copy the model, or let's say successful model of rural tourism development in Ishikawa Prefecture to Kunisaki Peninsula in Oita Prefecture, where Ritsumeikan Asia Pacific University exists. So we did some marginal village case study and developments, and we tried to bring the experience from Ishikawa Prefecture to Oita, and it was going well. And you know, the number of inbound tourism in Japan has developed very, very rapidly during last 5 years. So it was helping us to have not only domestic and local tourism, but also international tourism. But for about 5 months now, the village that used to have or accommodate thousands of people is totally empty now. And this is a big problem. So I want to move on to the next slide. You can see this is how Tokyo is connected to this area. Is very well connected in Japan. We have very high infrastructure. We have airports now. We have this rapid train, Shinkansen also. Here is how they share in Shunran no Sato the information that I collected for the start or the beginning of the tourism development. You can see the houses or rural houses or looks like this. This is a traditional bath inside the house. The house itself is an attraction. So for people who come from Tokyo, for example, charcoal making, which is not really a part of livelihood anymore, but it is an attraction. And this technique for charcoal making is not only for fuel wood, is for Japanese traditional tea ceremonies. As you see, the charcoals here are very identical and the same shape, so they can make this livelihood. And at the same time, the traditional way of making charcoal is a tourist attraction. The big problem of Japan as a whole is abandonment of agricultural landscape and is aging society. This gentleman, when I took the picture, was 96, about 8 years ago, but he's still very healthy and he is in the industry. But for a few months, he's lost his job and he is very, let's say, sad. Local schools are closed, no students. You can see the schools are utilized now as a kind of accommodation for local events. So these students are not from that local village, they are from Osaka, which is a big city in the area. So at night, they have this program. This is my camera flash, or otherwise you can't see anything in this picture. And you can see that they can do this refresh and natural experience in the area. I did some assessment of human capital. You see the average age everywhere in Japan is the same. Social capital is very high in Japan. The level of trust, they can work together very high. Natural capital, plenty of these resources. Economic capital is very advanced. And institutional capital that they connect with their customer and the word of mouth, do the advertisements for them. The level of partnership, all is very highly helping with Japanese rural tourism and rural development through tourism. So what I want to conclude here is these traditional values and partnership and the conservation and the local government support has created this good network as a backbone for rural tourism. There are a number of cases like this in Japan, but what this webinar is trying to bring up is what to do when we have such a big disaster. So in Japan, in a rural area, what I want to say now, the problem really is not tourism. The problem is the aging population, lack of, let's say, human resource, and they are not really or highly depending on tourism livelihood. But for those successful models that they change their livelihood quickly, or let's say too fast, and they gave a dominant role to tourism, now I can say they are in problem. But I can see the number or many other villages around Japan that, because they did not really become very highly depending on tourism, they can resist more. So this is the problem in the rural level. But in more local level, I'm living in a city that I have a representative here in our participant, Mr. Nogami Yasuo, that if we can make time, I can ask him to elaborate a bit about the city. City of Beppu that has 100,000, Professor Jafari has been here, 100,000 population with over 17 million visitors a year, now is empty. And it's a hot spring destination of Japan. This huge organized tourism city that in Ritsumeikan University, we are using it as a kind of tourism laboratory for our school, now is empty. And we are all, or let's say the whole city is online. So I hope we can share the lessons from other participants and see how we can make a conclusion on this. I think my time is over.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Kasim. Appreciate the comments, but surely we can see that in your case, we got from tourism to no tourism in the areas, particularly in the remote areas. So we are going to get the same story more or less in other places, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we are talking about a universal problem and of a large magnitude. So we go to Reza Sultani, our next panelist. He's a marketing psychologist with degrees from Brussels in Belgium. He has one of the special talents that many of us do not have, and that is to speak 7 languages, including Asian languages. He's a specialist in destination marketing, digital tourism, and branding. He's editor-in-chief of Travel Tourism News. And he's the co-founder of the Chernobyl Community Tours and Tourism for the Orphans of War and Peace Festivals. Reza, would you take us to your destination?
Sure. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I have a few concrete cases that I've worked on. Currently, I'm in Laos, and so I'm going to talk more about the cases that I've experienced, seen, and also worked with the people in the community tourism. What I can tell you in the more poor countries, let's say in Laos, in Papua New Guinea, in Bhutan, they are really suffering. So they really have a problem. Maybe everybody has a problem, but well, our talk now today is about tourism. So I can tell you, like the tour guides, the travel agents, everybody has some serious problems, and they don't actually get enough attention and media coverage because most of them are in rural areas. They don't have the enough resources and the media and the knowledge to bring out their problems. So in somehow not many people are helping them, or they are not getting enough help. I'm going to talk first about the Bhutan, a country with just 750 thing and the branding and the tours to get more tourism. So 70% of the people in Bhutan are farmers, and almost 20% of their income, economy, GDP is from the tourism. So it's very important for them. After the corona came, so they have been hit very hard, and they had serious problems. But and they are losing, I can tell you at this moment, $3 million a week because of the virus, which is a huge sum of money for them. They have done lots of good initiative, especially the king of the Bhutan has done very interesting ideas. So what he has done, he's renting free of charge. He's giving actually the land to the people, including 5,000 tour leaders. By the way, 5,000 tour leaders are in Bhutan. And so they can use these lands free of charge for a period of 1 year or 2 years to farm. So let's say the tour guides or the travel agents, many of them became a farmer. So that's a good thing. They are not really suffering of the hunger, but and so it less the pain. And the other concrete issue that I want to talk about is Papua New Guinea. Yes, if you, that's still Bhutan. If you can go to the next one. Okay. Can you go to the next photo, please?
Yes, I'm trying.
Okay.
Please continue.
Well, okay, in Papua New Guinea, also a very poor country, actually. Many of those involved in the tourism, they are hugely suffering. I can tell you some of them, their children are hungry. A very good, no, that's Jamaica.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, no problem. So in Papua New Guinea, we are working actually with a big band of the music. Because there are so many ethnic groups in Papua Guinea, and most of them live in the remote areas. So they used to live them from the tourism, as you can see.
May I ask all participants except Reza to mute their mic?
Okay. So as you can see in this photo, actually the middle one is a colleague of mine. So they used to perform music and they are artists, but at the same time they could make their living. So because there is no tourism now, they are jobless and they home, and it's very hard for them. In fact, I heard some of them are using more alcohol. There is also more rise in. So that's a huge problem, and actually nobody is almost covering those problems because many of them even they don't have an internet. So that's a really sad situation for them. I can tell you, even I know people who were involved in the tourism and their children are really now going hungry. That's how the situation is. At the end, I just want to talk about Jamaica. Jamaica, of course, is the situation is not so bad, but they have been very active and innovative. They have created online courses and doing marketing things, community, country-style community tourism, for example, the organization. They have organized many things. They distributing also some food for the elderlies and the food that actually couldn't be sold in the hotel and restaurants. Yes, that's it.
You're done, right, Reza?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much. As you can see, we have had 2 presentations so far, and 5 minutes in Asia means a bit longer than 5 minutes. So I hope the next 5 minutes are going to be 5 minutes or less, so we can finish on time. So far, we have heard about two countries, or communities in 2 different countries, or several countries actually, as we're talking about, that become highly dependent on tourism, and then suddenly no tourism and there is no help for them. There's nobody to help them, nobody to talk to them, nobody to support them, nobody to give them directions for tomorrow. And they don't know if there's any tomorrow. So let's move on to the next presentation to Ms. Jaranya from Thailand. He's director of Community-Based Tourism Institute in Thailand. She has trained more than 1,000 community members in the area of, in various areas of community development, including stakeholders. She has done that in more than 100 countries. Her training includes management, marketing, green product development, climate change, community guide training, and she has delivered her work in both in Thailand and abroad. Jaranya, you have 5 minutes.
Yes. Hello, everyone. สวัสดีค่ะ So I'm now taking you to the community-based tourism in Thailand, and as I understand that most of you or many of you are involved in tourism, so you would familiar with this term. But can I have a PowerPoint, please?
Yes, in a moment.
Thank you. So right now the community-based tourism in Thailand is almost 800 community working on this, and in Thailand we have divide them to be 3 groups. Why I'm talking about that? This is because the CBT in Thailand is like the CBT is a tool for development, not for tourism development. Okay, so this is the next one. This is the next 5 minutes. The first one, please.
Okay.
Yeah, the first one is a impact from COVID-19. Yes. All right. So yes, this one. Yeah. So what I'm talking about is when we're talking this is almost 800 community, and the group A is meaning that they have experience in different group of visit to them, and also the experience in marketing. So they can do marketing themselves. They're also working with the tour operator in country and internationally. But I don't say that all of them success, but this is the set of information. We have a standard, and they pass to this standard. Okay, so the group B is they are ongoing. They are less experienced, but ongoing there. The C, they're just starting, but they are past the CBT Thailand standard, which is the cover of 6 group of the 8 group of they have to work on, like the national resource, youth, culture, food, service, marketing. Next, please. Right. And why I bring this, because what I'm going to share with you is the most of our CBT community is not get serious impact from the COVID-19. Why is that? Because everyone get it. Yeah. Because the process of work, as you see, this the 5 main goal is firstly is about okay, how they can learn, they can work together participatively. That important and obstacle for every group. The second one is this is the learning and sharing between different culture. Okay, And they also learn how to manage the national resource, which is the capital of the community. And the first one is also sharing experience between two different cultures. Last one is increase the community income. So this is the main goal. Next, please. So I may not go in detail of this, but by those five main goals, the community organization in Thailand, like even stakeholder, we work through on this step. Okay, so most of the community, we go from the process to product. Yeah, so you will see that this 10 steps from the set organization, the direction, the design tour program, train the guide, the pilot tour, and monitoring. So this is the work within a year. So what I'm saying that this process is quite build them the capacity of management, and they know that this is the source of income, like the supplement. So they will not leave their main income, which is even farmland, the craft, or anything like that, to tourism only. Next, please. Okay, so from those work, I just share with you that this is those kind of program. And you can also see the tourists. Yes, some community, because of COVID-19, they didn't have the tourists at all. Yeah, international tourists or Thai tourists. But this life still remain. Okay, this life, this activity is still remain because this is way of life. Next, please. This is a capital. So the CBT is one major job is how to maintain, how to preserve, how to keep this capital alive and fresh and rich. So that the major job of the community group. So, and then they have this beautiful thing to share with the tourists. So this is the process of those 10 steps of working. Next, please. Next, yes. So I would say that you will see that these mountain people, hill tribe people, they used to be the voiceless of the community because what they speak, no one care. Okay.
Hello.
We don't have her voice.
She has a problem.
Maybe she muted herself. I'm checking. No.
She disconnected.
Disconnected, yeah.
Well, Dr. Kasim, let's move on in the interest of time. And later on, she would have a second opportunity when we talk about the future prospects. So far, we have heard more stories of pain rather than pleasure in many different countries, in the small communities that become dependent on tourism, and then suddenly there's no tourism at all. Smallness, as you can see, is the key concept here. We are not talking about the former sector of tourism. So let's move on to our next country, Malaysia. I introduced you Professor Ahmad Fuad Matsam. He's Dean of Graduate School, University Sultan Zainal Abidin, Malaysia. with PhD in tourism from University of Strathclyde, a great university in UK with which I worked. And I recall some years ago, I built a bridge of education between the United Kingdom and Iran for offering British degrees in hospitality and tourism in Tehran. Is interested in planning and development, community participation, crisis management, and Muslim-friendly tourism. A large community, by the way, Dr. Ahmed. This means 1.6 billion people who are Muslim, and you know this market quite well. And among other things, is head of Malaysia chapter of International Institute for Peace through Tourism. Dr. Ahmad, would you take us forward?
Thank you, Prof. Jafari, for the brief introduction. Hello, everyone. Is my voice clear?
Yes.
Okay. Before I zoom into the case study area, which I will be talking about small island community, Perhentian Island in the northeast of Peninsular Malaysia, let me bring you a bit of overview about different countries in Southeast Asia. Can you move to the next slide, or should I?
Is it right?
Okay. Southeast Asia is a region south of China, and you notice that there are 11 countries. They vary in terms of their geographical size, population size, and also economy. We have a tiny country like Singapore, and to the most populous like Indonesia, which is the fourth most populous country in the world. And you see that the magnitude and scope of impact of COVID to those countries in terms of tourism really depend on how they responded, whether they were passive, whether they were reactive or proactive, severity of the case in terms of number of cases, and also during the also duration of the lockdown. And the longer the period of the lockdown, the more severe the impact of to the tourism industry. And can you move to the next slide? And you see that when COVID happened, actually the case in Malaysia started, the first case was recorded in late January. Actually was recorded on the 25th of January. But it occurred at a very unfortunate time when Malaysia was supposed to kick off with the Visit Malaysia year. It planned to target 13 million international tourists with about 100 billion of tourism receipts. And typically, January, February was supposed to be high tourist visitation from mainland China. So, and you notice that how the country responded quite late, because China was a large tourist market for most of the countries in Southeast Asia. And based on the preceding year's statistic, on average, we receive about 2 million tourists per month. And it was reduced based on the statistic from Tourism Malaysia to only 10,000 tourists in April. So that was a very huge drop in terms of tourist arrival, and that affected the tourism industry because 70% of the tourism in the country was actually composed of SMEs and the informal sector. Okay, I'm going to touch on my next slide, my case study area. So the one that I will be showing you is actually a Perhentian Island. Is located northeast of Peninsular Malaysia. Can you show the next slide? Okay. You see, it's a very small island. It's about 15 kilometers square in terms of area. It's located about 10 nautical miles from the mainland. It's about 19 kilometers. And this state where I am residing, one of the natural attraction is actually nature-based. There are many small island destination, very popular in the past among backpackers and also among domestic tourists. Can you show the next slide? And there are actually two islands. Is called Perhentian Kecil, is called small island, and the other one on the right side is the big island. They have about 60 resorts, mostly small chalets, but mostly over 60% are concentrated in the small island as compared to the big island. But both islands, they typically have different tourist profile. The small island, they target mostly the backpackers in the past. But on the big island on the right side, they target mostly family travelers. Um, but based on interviews from the operators, the profile of the tourists have already changed. From the past, mostly backpackers, especially from European market, but now they are more into middle income. So in terms of the product and services have already changed to suit the needs of a more affluent tourist market at the moment. Next slide, please. And the island is rated by CNN as one of the top 25 beaches in the world. Actually, it's ranked as the top 13 beach by CNN in 2017. And they have the Long Beach, and the nightlife is very lively because we have a lot of the free independent travelers, backpackers. So one of the issues, and the photos that I'm showing you is situated southwest of southeast of the small island, is where the local communities are inhabiting. They are mostly previously they work as fishermen, but now most of them converted their livelihood to tourism. Whether they become chalet operators, they own restaurants, they work as boat guides, diving instructors, and they provide product and services to the tourists. In terms of size, it's only about 2,000 of them. It's a very small community in this island. Next slide. Okay, one of the issues facing this island is seasonality, because this island is very exposed to open sea, the South China Sea, and due to that is exposed to eastern monsoon season. And from the period of November until February, the island experienced heavy rain, torrential rain, and also because of that, very choppy waters, a strong wave, and it's not really safe for tourists to visit the island during those period of time. So because of that, they normally operate from March until October. So they have only a period of 8 months. They earn income enough for 8 months to survive for 1 year. And the problem is that the COVID in Malaysia started in March. Although the first case was recorded in January, but it started to pick up in March. That was when the federal government imposed lockdown, but what we call as a movement control order. Because of that, there was travel restriction, no interstate travel, and we were confined to stay home. And at that time, starting 18th of March, there was no tourists, which means no tourists and no tourist dollar. The problem is that only now, when the COVID, the situation has already eased a little bit. Starting 10th of June, we are in the recovery stage, whereby the government has already relaxed the interstate movement, and we are now able to engage in domestic tourism. Only now the operators have started to receive bookings and also gradual visitation among the domestic tourists. But they actually have 4 months left. They have July to October, to operate, to earn income, to sustain for their annual expenditure. So that's a big problem for the local people. So next slide, please. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier on, they are very dependent on tourism. Previously, the local communities, they in terms of their livelihood, they work as fishermen. But as the tourism flourished in the island, all fishermen, they converted their main economic activities from marine base to engage in tourism activities. And because of the COVID, when no tourists coming, so it's a huge loss in terms of income to them. And as I mentioned earlier on, zero tourists, $0, and but all operators at the moment, they only close their tourism businesses temporarily. Unlike big hotel, some of the big hotel in Malaysia, we notice there are some of them, they permanent. Some of them we have had a few cases of big hotel close permanently because of the high operating costs. But for them, because that's their only main income, so they only close temporarily. But when I interviewed some of the operators, how they survived during this COVID period, during the lockdown, that they had utilized their saving, because it's very common for them to earn for 8 months to survive for 1 year. They normally have some cash saving, so they utilize their saving, and some of them also sold jewelries to get some cash, and they involved in micro businesses to survive. And some of them, because they have no choice to survive, they ended up doing fishing activities for food supplement. And but luckily, in terms of workforce, 80% of the workforce are actually being recruited from local people, and the operators actually give some tokens to the local workers, although they are being unemployed. For example, they give them a token about 150 ringgit to 200, so that's about $40 per month, just to let them survive. Interestingly, during this COVID, we have got about 40 foreign tourists. They were stuck in the island, but they decided not to return their home countries, because they found that it's relatively safer for them to stay in the island rather than returning to the home countries, because most of the tourists stranded are basically from Europe. So now, with the current relaxation of the movement control order by the government, already allowing interstate travel, domestic tourism. Domestic tourism is now is poised to spur the growth of tourism in the island, but it's very slow in progress, because they typically rely on European market, and they only have 4 months left to operate. But they also have been fear among domestic tourists, because they are still concerned about safety, and again, because of the new SOP, social distancing, and the new normal, and it become more expensive travel package. Example, a boat from the mainland, the new SOP, they have to carry half capacity. So I was informed by the boat operators, they had to charge higher to tourists in order to recover the costs of transporting. So
Professor Ahmad, I hope you're coming to the end of your presentation.
yeah. It is my last slide now. So but there is one good thing, because of the COVID, because no activity, the environment in terms of quality is getting better now. Quality of water, quality of the marine life. So that's to conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Again, what was repeated in this third presentation or third present, it was a smallness, remoteness, dependence on tourism, and zero tourists, $0. But it was good to see that at least in the case of Malaysia, some help is available, and some people had some cash to move on. In some of the other destinations like Nepal and Bhutan, etc., I mean, they even don't have those possibilities. So they have zero money, zero income, zero food to eat type of situation. So let's move on to Europe. And I want to remind Kasim, since we are going to Portugal, and since Portugal is the land of Secretary General of the United Nations, I want to show that video, but let's find it and we show it at the end. So let's go to Portugal. Let me introduce my next panelist, Geraldo Prado. He is with the University of Trás-os-Montes e Alto Douro, Portugal. He's assistant professor of anthropology. So as you can see, he's really connected to people. He does research on cultural tourism in Portugal, in Galicia of Spain, in Panama. He is on editorial board of a number of journals, including Journal of Tourism and Cultural Heritage. Geraldo, would you take us forward? A different type of presentation for sure.
Professor Geraldo, can you unmute yourself? Yes, now is okay.
Okay. Have you listened to the presentation? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you right now.
Okay. I am going to speak about the Portuguese inner way to Santiago de Compostela and the actual situation with the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic. The Portuguese inner way to Santiago de Compostela is an interior journey through the inland of Portugal and Galicia, from Viseu to Chaves. You can see some maps in the next slides to locate and to make a better contextualization. It's possible to advance, to move on. Okay. And the reinvention of history and tradition that presents this way set as an alternative heritage to other pilgrims' routes to Santiago, when some are massified and saturated, in the case of the so-called and famous French way to Santiago de Compostela. And the coronavirus pandemic has had a strong impact on tourist travel and is expected to have a strong impact on travel intentions during the post-pandemic stage. The coronavirus, in this case, could see as an anti-tourism situation and also an under-tourism and in tourism situation. But at the same time, the rural and countryside areas of Iberian Peninsula, Portugal and Spain, have now a good opportunity to develop rural, responsible and alternative tourism to the dominant models of sunshine and beach. For that, there is a dependency of 5 capitals: economic, social, technological, cultural, and symbolic. And in the case of the Portuguese inner way to Santiago de Compostela, the low demand of pilgrims, of tourist pilgrims, We speak about 2,000 pilgrims per year. Is at the same time a good opportunity to redefine rural tourism and to create a better development for rural areas in the Iberian Peninsula. We observe a patrimonialization of that cultural tourism roles concerning a sustainable model of tourification, and also a regional and transnational cooperation between countries and regions in Portugal and Galicia in the northwest of Spain. This type of cooperation move on the design and organization and in deep pilgrimage experience with rural and rural communities of Portugal and Galicia, communities with high diversity, high cultural diversity, but at the same time between Portugal and Galicia with many affinities, many affinities. Nowadays, the municipalities and the small communities of these rural areas are trying to create a new promotion, doing research with our university, and to try to create a sustainable tourism based upon a new spiritual tourism for people looking for rest, tranquility, nature, landscape, nirvana, and a new spiritual center for human life. But with the arrival of coronavirus pandemic, the stop of tourism in this part of Europe has had a shock and provoked the cut of the borders between Portugal and Spain, the scare, fears, and prejudice regarding post-coronavirus travel, but at the same time, it was a time for protection, health, and thinking about the present and the future. The Portuguese inside line way to Santiago de Compostela administration, the municipalities, the public municipalities of the area, have prepared a safe and clean certification for the path, the hostels and accommodation, joined with Turismo de Portugal. We were speaking about hundreds of accommodation and private and public accommodation that are going to open or reopen now in July, in the 1st of July for the people. Linking the universities and the administration of these cultural roads has been created a research and strategies for the future. You are doing marketing and planning for the future of these cultural routes and alternative cultural routes to the other pilgrimage routes to Santiago. We assist to opportunities for walking tourism, pilgrim tourism, rural tourism, nature tourism, ecotourism, community-based tourism, proximity tourism, domestic, national, and trans-regional tourism in the area in the next month, only in the next month, and the recovery of international tourism that is very polemic in the international agenda, speaking about over tourism and other negative effects of tourism is in this case very low. New spiritually motivations, more emotional and sentimental in the pilgrim's way to Santiago de Compostela is going a good opportunity to the future and to the reinvention of these communities, inland communities the Iberian Peninsula. Also, I would like to move on the next slide to show you, to share some photographs about the way. It's a way between Viseu, Vila-real, Chaves, the Douro region, UNESCO Cultural Heritage, and Santiago de Compostela, but also is a double way to Fatima Sanctuary in the center of Portugal. Finally, I would like to share with you some ideas about opportunities for these rural communities, especially speaking about social and emotional reequilibrium in the pilgrim ways to solve some health and mind problems with the confinement in the pandemic coronavirus. The ways to Santiago are experiences that stimulate feelings and emotions. A new pseudo-escapism for the people that have closed a lot in the pandemic situation. Is a destiny to experience safe, health, clean, and trust, and the local stakeholders are constructing a new brand to redefine trust about the tourist experience in line of the country. We are trying also to create a smart tourism and the digitalization of the activity and its information, a greater contact and interaction with nature and cultural heritage, new age, nature and nirvana as a new ways or in deep ways to tourism, to pilgrimage tourism. Another opportunity is the preference for the international tourists for the consumption of local products. This is we are speaking about rural areas with local farmers, very high quality products, and food for eat, but food and also food for think. Activities that promote personal growth we can see and observe and we can do in this pilgrimage route. Independent travel that is going in the next months, very important. Confidence, relax, calm, quiet, and a comeback to the roots, local taste and knowledge. Low carbon and responsibly travel experience in these pilgrimage routes have defined and sustainable and responsible tourism. And another opportunity is to reduce the inequality between littoral, the coastal areas of Portugal and Spain and inside of the country as Trás-os-Montes and Alto Douro, the region that has that is crossed by this cultural pilgrimage route. And finally, we would like to underline the increase of local and community cooperation. The tourism create community, not only community create tourism travels and experience and tourist travel cultural goods, but at the same time, from my point of view, tourism could be a good opportunity to reinforce the sense of life and the community sense of life. And from my point of view, the pandemic situation is creating a new opportunity to create solidarity in the diversity of the local communities, and also innovation and resilience, a new adaptation to new times. Thank you by the attention and listening to you.
Thank you, Geraldo, very much for your presentation. What was a bit different from the previous presentations is that pilgrimage was the moving force of this presentation, or even he mentioned Fatima, another famous, a sort of Mecca of for the Christian community, for the Portuguese community. And this your presentation was of special interest to Muslim countries because the period of Hajj is coming very soon, and Saudi Arabia has to make a decision as how many pilgrims can go to Saudi Arabia. So let's move on. We are really running out of time. We have so much to talk about. As you can see, we should have made this 5 different webinars. Let's go to Duarte Moraes. He is a professor at North Carolina State University in the United States, associate professor of equitable and sustainable tourism at North Carolina State University. He's a tourism extension specialist, which means he goes to the people. You know, he delivers the knowledge to people. He's the lead of People First Tourism Lab of the university, and he conducts participatory action research relating to tourism, micro-entrepreneurship, and is doing a book on tourism micro-entrepreneurship. Go ahead, please. Duarte.
Thank you, Professor Jafari. Kazem, if you would like to unlock my video, then people can also see me, but that's not really too important since we'll focus on the slides. So what I would like to mention first is that on that introductory slide, you can see the URL of my lab, the lab that I lead with a few other colleagues and students, and there's other institutions across the world that are collaborating with us, and they also have their own P1T labs, and we kind of in similar ways. Just with that intro, if you'd like to jot it down, I also am posting the URL on the chat in case you'd like to check things out. I've written a couple of blog posts this week about the things I'll mention today, so you can refer to those for more detail. So the next slide, what I would like to give you an intro to is kind of the location of my work. I'm actually Portuguese and I am in Portugal back home. I came for a conference and kind of got stuck here, but I work in the United States. I've been there for about half of my life. And I've been for the last decade in North Carolina, which is kind of similar to Portugal geographically and population and climate wise, just kind of tipped over to the west side. You can see the little red state of North Carolina in the Atlantic coast of the United States. It's a kind of sandwiched somewhat in between New York City to the north, or New York State to the north, and Florida to the south. So we're kind of in the middle of that East Coast region of the United States. So we're a very popular state. Out of the 50-some states in the United States, we're the 6th most visited. And we have about 50 million visitors coming to the state. Those 3 pictures on this slide kind of reflect the diversity of experiences people come to seek in North Carolina. To the west side, that pointy left side of the map, is a very mountainous area, like in the north of Portugal. And there's just beautiful mountains and sunsets and hikes and waterfalls, and there's cool temperature. So in the summer and spring, people seek refuge in the, if you could go back, Kazam, I just want to talk a little bit more about that area. And then the middle photo is of the capital of the state, Raleigh, where my university is located. And it has a typical, those kinds of cities in the middle of the state. They have cultural attractions and festivals and things like that, very popular destinations of their own. And then on the coast, we have just world-renowned beach destinations. To piggyback on some of the comments from other speakers, the COVID-19 pandemic hit North Carolina at an unfortunate time of the year. The spring is a time where people come out of the winter, and that it is spring season, you know, in March, April, and a little bit into May in North Carolina. And that's when people start getting out of their houses and try to do extended weekend trips into the mountains, into the cities with festivals, cultural festivals, and a little bit of the shoulder season in the coast. And so all of that has been missed out. And I'll explain how that's affected some of the micro entrepreneurs in the region. And then now we're working our way into summertime. And in the summer, the cities are kind of too hot for having really large events. So there's some, but it's kind of toned down tourism. But at the coast and the mountains, it's very popular tourism in this month of May, June, July, and August. And the country is reopening slowly. In North Carolina, is the pandemic is flaring up quite a bit. So there's a lot of uncertainty. Hotels are starting to open, restaurants, especially the outdoor areas, are starting to open, but infections are spiking. So everybody's kind of on the edge of their seats, wondering if it'll get too bad and North Carolina will have to close again before the end of the summer, which would be a huge blow to the tourism industry in general and to the micro entrepreneurs that, you know, capture some of their livelihoods from tourism. So we're going to we work with about 80 micro entrepreneurs across the state. They basically have no employees, or they have 1 or 2 employees, or they employ somebody else from the family. And they usually are not 100% involved in tourism. They do other things as well, but tourism is a part or a large part of their livelihood. And I'm going to kind of oversimplify and tell you kind of the perspective of 2 kinds. So Kasim, the next slide is talking about small farmers. So these small farmers, they usually have farm visits that with our help, groups of people come to visit them to see where food comes from, and they sell to restaurants. And so with the pandemic, they haven't been able to do either of those things. So the income from selling to restaurants is zeroed. The restaurants have been closed, and they cannot get visitors to their farm as tourists. One of the ways that they usually have visitors is on farm tours. And so on a weekend, a bunch of farms, like 20 farms, are open. They have a website, an association that coordinates this, and then people get a ticket and they can go to any of those farms. And that kind of flow, kind of like a large scale event, those kinds of things have been prohibited. And the farmers really relied on those in the spring to sell a lot of product. Usually they don't charge for people to visit the farm, but they sell product when people come to these, you know, lots of people come to their farms, and they encourage them to bring a cooler so that people can buy and keep things fresh in their car. So their income really, really crashed. The thing though is that in terms of resilience, the farmers are often dealing with a lot of uncertainty. And so this is kind of a huge radical amount of uncertainty or crisis to them, but many of them were able to adapt. We had been, for example, encouraging them to embrace online payments and online retail of experiences and product. And many of them were just kind of reluctant to get into it, but many of them have jumped on to online platforms like Barn to Door and localharvest.com and other kind of platforms like that. And so they've made their products available, and people that are afraid of, you know, they're trying to avoid going to grocery stores and stuff, they are also more interested in buying online. So it's kind of worked out well. These small farmers are selling to people in the neighboring area. They can put things in the mail or deliver. And they also have arranged for pickup. So kind of like McDonald's, they have a day where people can come and pick a box of vegetables. So let's say Wednesday afternoons, they just have everything ready. People pass by with their car and they've already paid online, and they just come and pick it up. So we've kind of assisted them from NC State, ways for them to adapt to these new market opportunities. And if we go ahead to the next slide, I'll talk to you about more like cultural experience providers, cultural guides. You can see there's a variety. Sometimes it's about natural knowledge, local indigenous knowledge about nature and medicinal plants and what to get in the woods. Sometimes it's related to art, and sometimes it's related to music. And these micro entrepreneurs were very severely affected as well. Usually these kinds of events connect with larger arts and entertainment events in these destinations. And then people that go to those festivals and spend a weekend in one of these cities, they might want to have an extra experience with a local guide so that they can get to know more, a little depth into that kind of topic, either nature, or art, or music, or the architecture, or history. But with all those events were prohibited. Anything with more than 10 people has been prohibited in the United States. And so they haven't been able to piggyback on those kinds of events. And they're also afraid of liability of, accepting a lot of people, and then there might be infections, and then they would be the cause of those interactions and those infections. So with these guides, we've kind of assisted them and just observed them as they've also adapted. One of the things that these guides do is they may have the excuse of talking about art, but they might be actually telling participants, the tourists, the importance of being creative for our own well-being, as Professor Pereira was commenting on, the power of tourism to do these things. And so they've started now to do Facebook Live and online therapy sessions where they might be teaching art or encouraging people to think about the meaning of life. So they've kind of retooled themselves, explored some free internet platforms to deliver their beliefs and their skills and to engage with customers. Often it's been difficult for them to charge money for this. So they're in a way doing this just to kind of keep visibility and keep engagement with visitors in the hope that they will be able to have them as paying customers in the future. One participant, I've been paying attention to chat, mentioned that the idea or the strategy of having virtual experiences and then selling real stuff that can be shipped by mail. And one of these entrepreneurs in this picture has done that. She's maintained a presence online with her free kind of advice sessions and gathering sessions where people can even just speak about how they're feeling. And then, on the side, she will mention that she has made certain kinds of products that are COVID-19 related, and then has a website where she will sell those. So, being creative and pivoting to this new reality, it is happening. They are very, very innovative, and they are exploring ideas on how to adapt to these new circumstances, but they are actually still struggling on how to make real income in this kind of environment. One thing I wanted to mention is that we are embracing the idea of virtual experiences, and we're connecting with destinations themselves as a way of engaging faraway visitors through these virtual experiences. They are subsidizing these virtual tours. We're doing them on Zoom and YouTube Live and Facebook Live, and they are subsidizing these kinds of insider virtual tours because they want to stay in the front of mind of potential visitors, hoping that these will translate into real visits when the market opens. So we're trying to broker these kind of partnerships where the destination is paying a little fee, and we book the micro entrepreneur and we assist them with technology so that they can do it. And so that's what I have, Jafar.
Thank you very much, Duarte. We are really pressed for time. I had another round of discussion with the panelists, but they were very generous with the use of 5 minutes I gave to them, and they used some of them as much as 10 or more minutes. Therefore, I cannot go to the second question of the panel. For the panel, which was what your communities are going to do during the next 4 months, and how they are planning to re-enter tourism industry. So we don't have that opportunity, but from the presentations, I gathered that a lot of questions comes to mind, and that is how to resume tourism in those communities. Would domestic tourism be an option? And the definition of domestic tourism may need to be revisited with, because distance is not something that can signify if tourism has received or not. People will have the tendency of going to nearby places, and definitionally would not be tourism. So we need to, I introduced a concept some years ago called paratourism, is visiting your neighborhood and nearby areas and being just a tourist. Another question that comes to mind is a fact that the essence of tourism are changing. The famous essence of tourism. I think there are new essence we have to think about: safety, security, sanitation, and service. These are the key elements that bring back tourism together. Especially when I say service, I mean sympathetic service or empathetic service. We have to empathize with the tourists that they are not comfortable with the situation yet. Traveling, sanitation will become a very important issue, whether we are talking about rural communities or we are talking about international tourism to mega cities. It was emphasized a number of times that innovation would be critical, and that would be each destination needs to come up with its own innovative way of doing things. Trust. You see, in the old days, we trusted the airlines with their big names and chain hotels, Hiltons and Sheratons and Marriott's and Club Med, etc. But and it's going to work for the formal sector of tourism, the trust. But the local communities, rural community, there's nothing to trust about. They don't have a brand. The big companies have brand, and they can cash on their brands and reputation. So the smaller communities need to regain the trust of the tourists to come to the rural communities, which by definition are not modern and therefore not up to date with sanitation, etc. Virtual was mentioned. I don't think virtual is going to ever replace tourism, nor would armchair traveler to sit in the comfort of your house and read a book about traveling. And these are, small bricks, but tourism by definition always has meant movement of people. Tourism is here to stay. Tourism is part of the culture of every nation. It is ingrained in the culture, and it is going to come back, and it's going to come back in a big way, but maybe a new way. Would telemedicine be a recipe, a solution, so the tourists can travel to faraway places, and if they get sick, with a telephone call, they can get to their own doctors, and medicine will be delivered to them right away. This is already being produced, put together, and telemedicine would help a lot and gives a sense of security and safety to people. And a question that would be raised about all these rural communities, small communities, is that in the old days, people who went to those remote areas were usually culture tourists, or they were adventure tourists. I wonder if the future tourists who go to these small communities would be of the same type, or even that would be different. And before closing, at least I want to give back the opportunity to every panelist to please, in one sentence, would you please give me a lesson we have learned or a recommendation you have for the small remote tourism destinations? And I begin in the same order of presentation. Kasim, how about you?
Thank you, Jafar. Actually, I think destinations are different, and each of them, they have their own priorities. So we don't have really a general solution for all destinations. In the case of Japan, I can see that a lot of livelihood in rural area now is not tourism, so there is less vulnerability. But in case of cities like Beppu City in Japan, which is not rural and there are bigger community, as a touristic city, we have a severe situation. So one of the solutions that is in this country right now is localizing the industry and tourism. There are a lot of subsidies from local governments that people can take the opportunity of 50% discount of travel vouchers if they travel within their locality. And I can't say this is sustainable, but it's a good way that people can start to explore their own locality, and they limit the mobility of tourism and travel for the short term until we have a better solution in long term for this pandemic.
Thank you, but do keep in mind that Japan is a developed country and your recommendation may not have a force in very poor countries. So let's go to very poorer countries. Reza, how about you? A lesson learned or a recommendation?
Yeah, the lesson learned, I think, is I can see that the best friend of the human is finally nature. The people who have been involved in tourism, who could go back to farming, to the land, they are suffering much less, they are much better off than, let's say, a tour leader who lives and keep living in the mega cities. The land and the nature is the really solution, and so we should respect it. We should make sure that our planet still stays sustainable, because without that we have nothing. That's all.
Thank you very much, Reza. Moving on to the next person, Jarania. Make it short, please. Jarania, are you there?
Unmute yourself.
Yes. So I think for Thailand is we come this far. I mean, we not lose so much or not affect so much. One thing is very important is we have a food security. Okay, so our farmland, not a big piece of land, but everyone have a grow something. So, and secondly, we found that the community could be the second home. So for tourism, is the way that to bring this issue to domestic tourists or even international tourists, that you can come to Thailand to rest, to enjoy our good food, good place, and also the good community. And this could not run by our side only. We need to bring heart, join hand, to bring this happen to be the responsible tourism. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Ahmed, how about you? Very quickly, a lesson learned or a recommendation?
Okay, thank you. I would like to say that in the foreseeable future, that crisis will be more recurrent in various types, whether it is in environment, economic, health, or political. And in particular, for small island tourism destination, environmental crisis will be more common due to global warming. And based on previous finding from academic literature, it is said that tourism is very prone to crisis, but is very quick to recover. But I would like to refute the statement that is no longer true in the case of this COVID pandemic, because it is exceptionally rare. In the past, the previous crisis very much localized, very much contained in certain geographical areas. So I would like to advise stakeholders to engage in proactive strategies and always engage in organizational learning to mitigate the impacts of crisis in future.
Thank you. Excellent recommendation. Geraldo, please, a short lesson learned recommendation.
Sure. From an Iberian Peninsula point of view, the tourism is moving on more ecological, more familiar, more green tourism, more sustainable, and the lessons for local communities are concerning the digitalization of the activity and information about their activities and their scenarios, the possibility of repopulation of rural areas, the new life in these rural areas or urban areas, with new values, new activities, and a new contract with nature and a contract with a natural contract post-pandemic times. And another lesson is the memories and the memories of the pandemic, and the necessary construction of a memory of the future the future, taking experience in these rural areas. New jobs, new opportunities for jobs. Rural areas are having a new perception of a new opportunity for human beings and human life, not only the urban areas of the coastline of Iberian Peninsula. More or less. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, Duarte, you have the final word.
Thank you. I wanted to pick up on one of the latest comments, this one from Herb Botie, and I'm sorry for probably mispronouncing your name, but that comment was regarding how many tourism businesses don't care about their employees, and the employees are looking for alternatives, and the businesses that care about their employees and their communities will thrive, whereas the others will fail. And I think that's what this crisis has done. It has unmasked selfish behavior and short-term profit behavior among not just businesses, as these participant pointed out, but also destination management organizations. If they really are trying to help communities leverage the economic opportunity of tourism to improve themselves, then the communities now will be there to rescue the industry. But if they've been predators of the beauty, of the culture, of the nature of a community, just to profiteer of the hospitality industry, now the community is going to say, good luck, you've been benefiting from us, and now fend for yourselves. And the last point I want to make is for ourselves, the academics. If we've just been traveling around the world preaching about our great research and we don't have real information for communities, if we don't have actionable advice to the people we're supposed to be studying, that'll show by our silence. You know, academics that have nothing to offer in a time like this, that shows, you know, they're just retreating back to their safe place and waiting it out until tourism is popular again. You know, we academics, consultants, destination development people, we need to be out in the fields, in the trenches, online, supporting the industry and the micro entrepreneurs that need us more than ever.
Thank you very much. Excellent comments. You know, the word community was in the theme of our webinar, and you finished with that word. Tourism, after all, you know, we have to ask ourselves, why do we do tourism? And the purpose of doing tourism is to benefit the community, the local population. And that tourism, which is not serving that purpose, is not going to work. It's not going to survive. It's not going to be successful. And thank you very much for emphasizing personnel that they need. Hello? We have noise interference. Emphasizing that personnel have to become more empathetical in the relationship with the guests and among themselves and with the community. They have to have a sentiment and understanding of what the community wants, the employees. The employees need to know how they can work with each other. And usually in tourism, employees are from different nationalities in many countries. And also how to empathize with the tourists who are returning after COVID-19, and they're not trusting anything. So we have to read the mind of the tourists and put them at ease. Excellent. And I hope in the education, we begin to emphasize empathy, education in the area of empathy. We are really out of time. Some of that has to do with the technical difficulties in 6 different countries that we had. And the other part is just the length of presentations. So we really were not able to deliver to you the whole package we wanted to, but there would be other opportunities. Before I close, let me remind everybody that this webinar is coming to you from beautiful Japan, from APU, the university over there. We thank them for making this possible. And the Dean of College of Tourism is, I think, listening to us right now, hearing us right now, Dr. Lee Yan. If you are there, would you please say something to our audience?
Jaffa, Nice seeing you here. Thank you so much. And thank you, the audience. And thank you, the panelists, for giving us good lessons from all over the world. I hope tourism can be more sustainable in the future. And by the way, we are organizing a new college about sustainability and tourism. So that's what our future direction is. Hope in the future we will have your seminar or lecture again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu. Yes, thank you for, we don't have time for the message of Secretary General, but I have good news. Most probably we will continue with this webinar. If we could come up, overcome technical problems and manage to put the presentation in 90 minutes package. It's very difficult to manage everything from a distance in 6 different countries, but I think we did it. I'm happy. I hope the audience are happy. I would like to thank our panelists, all 5 of them, 6 of them, and also I would like to thank the audience. Based on the remarks shared with me, that are coming from some 34 different countries, a huge group on webinar and through YouTube, live YouTube. Thank you very much for participating. Please complete a survey on the website, and we will share the result of that on the website later on. Duarte was going to entertain questions that you had sent to us, but as you can see, we have run out of time. I promise you that we would have another rendezvous very soon to continue with similar topics. Always the topic would be relating to the informal tourism sector of tourism, the underprivileged, the remote people who need help, and they need help more than the big formal sector who knows the business of how to secure money, how to do marketing, how to manage, how to survive. The small communities, rural communities cannot do that. So I thank you very much, and I say goodbye to all of you until our next rendezvous. We would announce the theme of the conference, date and time very soon. If any one of you have special themes that you would like us to pursue, please communicate that with us. But again, it has to be always about the informal sector and about the small communities, small operators, entrepreneurs, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much, and good day or good night to whoever you are, wherever you are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jafar.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Terima kasih.
شكرا جزيلا.
Maraming
Thank you.
salamat.
شكرا جزيلا. Salamat.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Multi obrigado.
Terima kasih.
Obrigado.
Merci beaucoup.
They don't want to go.
شكرا لكم.
Yeah, we are looking for the next sessions, hopefully.
Don't forget, our website will be updated. There is a survey. There are possibilities to contact with us, and I'm sure that the webinars will continue.
Thank you. I'm going to leave the webinar. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
See you.